The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. A new week is here. It's Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Cornhead Lager. Elijah Herbel, joined by Will Wilson for this show today as Schmitty has the week off, and Schmitty had himself a weekend. We'll get into that here in just a bit. I don't want to take away all his thunder telling his great story, but it's funny. After everything we talked about last week, a bit of a pyromaniac myself. I made it through the 4th of July with all 10 fingers, all 10 toes, no serious injuries to speak of. A bit of a bruise on my knee from some sand volleyball. But Schmitty's the one that ended up with a significant injury this weekend. We'll get to that here in just a second, but joined here in studio by Will Wilson, who's going to be filling in most of this week. Correct, Will?
Yeah, you could say that, most of this week.
You won't be here the whole time, but whenever we can get you, we will get you. If you're a local listener from here in Lincoln, you hear Will on our show here on our home station, KFOR, the morning hookup, mornings from 10 to 11. If you don't hear him on KFOR, if you're not from the area, you can find him on Twitter at Willie on the radio as well. So Will's going to be joining us this week while Schmitty is away. Again, Schmitty's out in western Nebraska on a golf trip. Not sure how much golf he'll be doing. We'll get into that here in just a second, though. Good show coming up for you today. Wonder what we're going to talk about. I don't know. It's a mystery to me. But we'll have Charlie McBride get his thoughts a little bit later in hour 2. We'll also have Jay Moore as a part of the Blackshirt Hour, as we do every single Monday. We've had our Mondays with Tim Verghese over the past couple of weeks. Tim's got the week off. He is overseas on vacation, so he's hoping to be enjoying. I'm hoping he's enjoying some time with his family and getting out, and picked a hell of a week for it. I'll tell you what, hell of a week for a vacation for Tim, for Schmitty, but we're going to be holding it down in the fort regardless. Will, we welcome you to the show here. How was your 4th of July? You spend it with family, friends, loved ones. You keep all 10 fingers?
I got all 10 fingers, which is good. The weekend was good. I worked every day, which, it is what it is, but I still had time to celebrate the 4th. Went up to my buddy's apartment. He lives on the 7th floor, and it was awesome. You could just see for miles just so many fireworks, and I hope he does it every year, because I will be there every year. I spent $0 on fireworks, and I think I got the best show. So it was incredible. So cool. Good 4th of July weekend. What about you?
I had a good 4th of July weekend. Schmitty and I were scheduled to go golfing on Sunday, and I get a text from Schmitty on Friday. So following the 4th of July, he made it through unscathed. I get a text from him on Friday, going to the doctor.
Oh.
Just finished up the 9th hole. I think I broke my ankle.
Oh, thank God. I thought, because you just had a colonoscopy, so I didn't know what was going to come out of your mouth. So, no. So he broke his ankle.
Apparently, he had his foot dangling out the side of the golf cart, and as he was going up to, or making the turn at 9, he got his foot caught in between a retaining wall and his golf cart.
Oh, my
and he
God.
heard a pop. That was the end of his round. Went off to the doctor, got an x-ray, and there was a small fracture in his ankle.
Do we know if he finished the round?
He did not.
He did not.
He did not. I didn't make fun of him for it. And credit to him, he still did say, I'll come ride along if you want to keep our golf tee time on Sunday. And I was like, no, it's okay. You can kick your feet
He
up
offered that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so nice of him.
Well, he's not in a cast. He's in a walking boot.
Well, also, I don't blame him.
He's weight-bearing, and I believe, if I remember correctly from the text you sent me, they're hoping to get him out of the walking boot in 2 weeks, which would be a pretty quick turnaround for a broken ankle. It wasn't the most significant fracture I've ever seen.
I don't blame him not wanting to go, or you saying, not ride with me on Sunday for the round, because I got to be honest, following you, watching you golf 9 holes, I think would be the last thing I want to do. I've seen your golf game.
You've seen my golf game once. It's gotten better.
Has it?
It has gotten better.
Okay, I'll believe you.
I golfed, this was 2 weekends ago, a 128 or 126.
128.
It's either 126 or 128.
Okay.
That's not bad for me.
Well, that's better than what? Because you said it got better.
Well, you remember last time we went golfing where we were all playing individual and we decided to go for a scramble instead because I couldn't hit the fairway or a green or really anything but a tree?
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. So it's an improvement. We're moving on up in the world. I can, for the most part, get my driver in the fairway. irons below a 5, not good for me still. But my 6, 7, 8, and 9 are all right. My pitching wedge is all right. My putting is, I think, average for a weekend warrior golfer.
Okay. All right. You know, it's funny you mentioned Schmitty breaking his ankle on the course, and you said he didn't finish the round. You know, I'm surprised because remember when Tony Finau, remember that clip a few years ago where he aced a hole, and as he was celebrating, he snapped his ankle, and then as he's laying on the ground, he snaps it back into place, and he finished the round. So come on, Schmitty. Figure it out.
Oh, I just feel bad for Schmitty because he had this week blocked off for a while. As being his week. He was going, I think, playing 4 different golf courses in the western part of the state. I think some of them would be defined by our friends in central Nebraska as central Nebraska, so I apologize in advance. I'm not going to say the golf courses because I don't want to screw it up. I don't know exactly where he's playing. I'll just say it's west of us.
It is west of
us here in Lincoln. I don't want to screw up central Nebraska, western Nebraska. I know there was one that was out in the Sandhills area, but western of us.
You can just say out west.
Out west, sure. He was going out there. I don't think he's going to be able to play in a walking boot, though.
No, probably not. And I didn't want to sound like a jerk. I was just giving him crap. I do hope he gets better soon. That sucks. I don't wish that on anybody.
We'll get to the starting 5 here in just a second as we have a tip-in.
Oh, more feet recommendations for you.
This comes from Elijah's Tootsies. Elijah's show feet. No, I don't think I will.
Elijah's Tootsies. One of these days you're going to have to.
I have a pretty decent little tan line going on my ankle, actually, so maybe this trip would like to see that. But Patrick chimes in and says, blame Elijah. This would be a good time to get to the Hail Varsity Radio starting 5 in here on a Monday as we have a good number of in. First in was Dave. Dave was number 1, the other Dave, that is. We also have Justin in second. Sal comes in third. A-Dub, a new name, comes in at number 4. I believe that was Andrew. Now going by A-Dub, we'll take it. Our friend Jeff from the Boulder Peace Treaty is in 5th. The real Matthew comes in first off the bench, number 6. We got Uncle Jimmy. That would be Andrew's Uncle Jimmy in at number 7 here with a Lagunitas in hand.
Nice.
It's a good way to spend a Monday. Brennan is back in. We got Jim in as well. Coach Brandon, Eric, Tuck, the other Elijah, Broderick. There's plenty of folks in here on a stream. 3-putt is in. I wonder how many 3-putt Schmitty had on Friday before the ankle break. Jeff is in. Melissa is in. And obviously Elijah's Tootsies. Patrick in as well. Not in the starting 5. He says, but spitting fire. So it's the Hail Varsity Radio starting 5 for you on a Monday. Plenty of good stuff coming. But where we clearly have to start this show, Will, is all the drama that we got on Friday. Now, I missed it. I wasn't here for the Saturday show. I had plans to go camping. The camping trip fell through. Ended up spending some time out at the lake on Friday night into Saturday, and that's where the volleyball incident happened, where I got a big old bruise on my knee. But that was a good time. Good to spend some time away. Also got a chance to see Mark and Chris and Gary get a very, very good showing on a Saturday as well. Highly recommend you check that out on the Hail Varsity YouTube channel if you haven't. Some rapid-fire reaction to Evan Cooper. That's still where we're at on a Monday. You got the Friday news dump in around 6 o'clock if you've been living under a rock, if you've missed it. Nebraska defensive backs coach Evan Cooper no longer with the team. He resigns on Friday officially, and Nebraska not announced just yet, but it has been reported on social media, targeting John Cooper to be the next defensive backs coach. From what I am hearing, he is already in Lincoln and around the team. It's just not officially yet announced. So that is what I am hearing as it stands right now. We got to get our official reaction in here on a Monday on the terrestrial airwaves to Evan Cooper, because it's a blow. No matter how many ways you want to slice it, losing Evan Cooper at this point in the season, or preseason, I guess I should say, a month out from starting fall camp, just under a month out. It's got shades of the Bob Wager incident from last year, if I'm being honest with you, just in terms of the blow. But the difference is Evan Cooper is so much more of a part of this staff and really a piece of Rule than Bob Wager was. When you look at Evan Cooper's career history, started with Rule at Temple. Rule turned him into the coach that he is today. I mean, goes from Temple to Baylor to Carolina to Nebraska. Every step of the way for Matt Rule and what he has been as a coach, Evan Cooper has been there with him, learning under him, turning into a coach. We've heard Matt Rule and Evan Cooper both talk about the eye for talent that Evan Cooper has. Talent evaluation, especially among high school kids, was what he really, really did best. That's what he's been doing since his start with Matt Rule back at Temple as player development. And you saw him make strides as a coach through his coaching career. Now that marriage, if you will, between Rule and Evan Cooper has been broken up. Evan Cooper steps aside, and no matter how many ways you slice it, it's a big blow for Nebraska. I know people have looked at the upside of Coach Cooper, and yeah, I don't disagree. There is upside to Coach Cooper, but it's not the guy you want in charge of that defensive back room. Evan Cooper is the guy that has been with Matt Rule every step of the way. He's been the guy that has brought the best out of a guy in Tommy Hill, who Tommy Hill was kind of thrown around during his college career, never really resonated with the coach, didn't know what to do with him.
Yeah.
He finds a guy in Evan Cooper that he's able to trust the vision for him, and you see what Evan Cooper is able to do there. The transition you saw from Isaac Gifford last year into a guy that was a piece of the defense to a star on the defense, in my opinion, and a leader on that defense. That's credit to Evan Cooper. I know we didn't see a whole lot of Deshaun Singleton last year, but to go from JUCO to an important piece of that defense on the back end early in the season is a credit to Evan Cooper. Some of those young guys you saw on the field, that's Evan Cooper, and that's what he does best, is he's got an eye for talent. He saw the talent in Tommy Hill, takes it and develops it much in the Rule style, and to lose that less than a month out from the start of fall camp, no matter how many ways you slice it, it's a big blow. It's not what Matt Rule wanted.
Yeah, we're all people. We all mess up. It kind of frustrates me, and we've seen this a lot, like you mentioned Wager last year, and even just out of the last 10 years, how many times have we seen coaches, resign or get fired for certain reasons? Again, we're not all perfect, but it does frustrate me when, these guys kind of, and again, I don't know what he did. I don't think anybody does. But he clearly screwed up. I mean, he's Rule's right-hand man. You mentioned the marriage that they had. You'd think Rule would defend him or try and keep him here, for what he did. But obviously, it was bad enough to where he had to resign.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? It frustrates me when people just don't realize the position they're in and they just screw up. But obviously, John Butler seems like a great hire, and that's all I really have to say. Is I'm just surprised. Really, that this would happen.
And shocked is the word that came. When I get the news on Twitter, shocked is the first word that comes to mind because of how important of a piece Evan Cooper was. I mean, a guy that could have been your next defensive coordinator in waiting after Tony White. I mean, he had that kind of respect from Matt Rule. His importance on the recruiting trail, I mean, I'd say your real closer on the recruiting trail, a guy that really connected really, really well with guys between the age of 17 and 21. That was an important piece of it. His eye for talent that he had. I mean, one of the things he talked about when he first showed up was, what I love doing is I love those late nights in December and in June where I'm up until midnight, 1 a.m. watching film, and I'm getting up early and I'm doing it all again. And I'm trying to find those diamonds in the rough that nobody else can see, but I see athletic traits that I think I can develop. It's a blow both short-term and long-term. I think you can give credit to Matt Rule for having a plan in place in Cooper, and we'll get a little bit more into Cooper a little bit later this hour. But I want to open the show by starting off and talking about the loss that is Evan Cooper, because you can try and sugarcoat it. You can try and say, well, Cooper's a guy with a boatload of experience, 10 years of NFL experience. He's going to come in and be an upgrade. We'll see. But I think you first have to talk about the loss that is Evan Cooper, because from a recruiting point of view, the talent he's able to find, the talent he's able to bring in, really big for this Husker football team. On the back end, 16 of your 21 guys in the defensive back room are in their first or second year in the program. And Evan Cooper, I mean, that's what he does, is he finds young talent that might be a little bit raw, and he wants to develop them. I mean, I talked about the fact that this is a guy that Matt Rule brought up in his own style. I mean, Evan Cooper is not the football coach he is today without Matt Rule. And you see it in the way he coaches, the way he connects with his guys. They are a very, very similar, in my opinion, coach, in that they want to find those guys that nobody else believes in. They want to believe in them. They want to build that relationship, build that trust, find the athletic traits, build them up, and take you from a guy who's a 17-year-old athlete into a 22-year-old football player, NFL guy. Both those guys have that same vision. They have the ability to do so. Evan Cooper is able to do it because of what he saw from Matt Rule. It's two guys that there's a reason they've been together for so long, and it's because they mesh. It's because they work well together. It's because, I mean, you really have a mentor type, a father-son type relationship there between those two. And this is a big, big blow for Rule to happen this early in the season. Like, in terms of all the assistant coaches you look at, Evan Cooper is the guy that is the right-hand man for Matt Rule.
Yeah, and the timing of this, I guess it's a little weird, but you're midsummer, so I guess the timing isn't terrible. You're bringing in a new hire. I just wonder how it affects the depth chart and all of that stuff when you bring in a brand new coach. You already gone through spring. that's what I'm kind of wondering too, is the timing of it, bringing in Butler and all of that.
Well, not only will Coach Butler have to, this is again assuming he is the guy, which I am doing at this point in time. There's been no other names floated around there. It sounds like Matt Rule has targeted him from the start of this process as being the replacement. It's twofold what he has to accomplish, because not only does he have his hands full with building relationships with guys who, let's be honest, they just had their position coach ripped away from him. A guy that they've spent the last 18 months building trust with, building a relationship with. That guy gets ripped away from them overnight. Now you have to step into a room where you don't know anybody. You have to build trust. You have to build that ability to coach a guy. You have to have that trust behind the scenes just for a guy to be coachable from you. He has to trust you before he's willing to be coached by you. You have to go build that trust in under a month. And then you have your hands full in the defensive back room this year. I know Tommy Hill had a great year last year, but doubts can emerge after the position coach who built him into what he is ripped away. You have some health concerns in the back end with Singleton coming back from the knee injury. You have the other Hill on the other opposite corner spot, probably not going to be ready to go for the start of the season. So you have to find a guy further down the depth chart that is going to be able to make plays for you. And it's a new eye on one hand. You can look at it in that way if you're in that defensive back room. It's a new eye and talent. It's a new lease on life for some of those guys to go out there and impress and give themselves another chance. But Coach Cooper's going to have his hands full getting this defensive back room ready to go for week one. And then you look at week two, you have a team that loves to throw the ball with a high-level quarterback and Shedeur Sanders coming to town. That's going to be a big test. We'll continue our reaction to Evan Cooper coming your way after the break.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Rolling through a Monday here on Hail Varsity Radio. Elijah Herbel, Will Wilson filling in today for Chris Schmidt. Schmitty's got the week off, but we're very happy to have Will. You hear him for our local listeners in Lincoln on our home station KFOR on the morning hookup. That is weekdays from 10 to 11, so check him out there. You can also check him out the morning hookup on YouTube as well, so we thank Will for being in here. One thing I want to note at the end of that last segment, referred to Coach Butler a couple times as Coach Cooper. That's wires cross type moment on a Monday after a holiday weekend. Forgive me, I do apologize. Got that locked in the rest of the show here. It was a long holiday weekend for me. Too many beers consumed probably, but we're back. We're back.
You're also getting blamed for this. Hashtag blame Elijah.
Because I was out on Saturday morning, I think. I was on vacation. Was that Brennan?
It was,
Yeah, Brennan chimes in and says Elijah might owe about $175 in the wrong name swear jar.
So you do this a lot, apparently.
I've been known to occasionally.
It happens.
The wires get crossed on a Monday.
Yeah.
But as we dive back into this conversation here on Coach Evan Cooper, the replacement in Coach John Butler, he's coming to Nebraska from the NFL, guy that was with the Texans, with the Bills, helped the rebuild at Penn State under Bill O'Brien, and then followed Bill O'Brien off to the NFL, and it sounds like he was a guy that wanted to move on up in the world. That's the guy who's got to step up and fill some big shoes right now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, too. Obviously, he spent a lot of time in college, but he's been in the NFL for the past few years, so I wonder what that transition is like coming back to college. Also, Nebraska's in a really good spot. I think the expectations are kind of high right now, and he's got to come in and really kill it. He's got to come in and do a really good job. He's got to replace some shoes that you said Evan was doing really well in. So it's an important hire, and it's from what we see, everything looks good. But let's hope he can get here and get the job done. And
Rule of the Day chimes in here. This is a comment I kind of want to get into. There's two different comments. One is Rule of the Day says, "I don't feel too bad for Cooper. He let everyone down. Hope he figures it out." That is true on the one hand.
I agree with that
because it hurts, and timing-wise, reading the tea leaves here, I don't think Evan Cooper is let go for quote-unquote personal reasons unless there is something that happened off the field. And Matt Rule holds a very, very high standard for his players.
He does.
He holds an even higher standard for his coaches.
Yeah, but again, you said this is his right-hand man. If it was something minor, maybe Rule would make an exception for this guy, and maybe he wouldn't. I don't know. I don't know the expectations he has, but again, the fact that he let this guy resign shows to me that what Cooper did, if he did anything, was kind of serious.
Well, one of the things that was communicated to me over the weekend was that though Rule was a part of this was above Rule.
Really?
This was above Rule. You can read into that how you want. That's just verbatim what I was told, is that Yeah, Matt Rule's aware of this situation. Matt Rule had a chance to get out in front of it. Matt Rule had a chance to go vet some candidates before the news became public. And that's how they're able to move so quickly and bring in a guy in Coach Butler. But that this came from above Rule. So you can read into that how you want, but I know how I'm reading into that. Is that there is something that happened off the field here that made it clear that Coach Cooper can no longer be with this program. That's how I'm reading into it. Another comment I want to get into quickly is from Jack. He chimes in and says, and a comment I made back in segment 1 is that Coach Cooper was ripped away from the guys in the room. He kind of reiterates some of the things I just say and says, I don't feel like it's him getting ripped away. I'm more looking at this from the perspective of the players in the room. That's the guys who I feel for in this moment. Like, Coach Rule's a guy that makes a lot of money in order to deal with issues like this, to be the adult in the room, quote unquote, and make the hard decisions. He makes a lot of room. There's a lot of zeros behind his salary for a reason. And it's because in college football, things like this happen. Coaches leave out of the blue. Coaches are fired. Coaches resign out of the blue. Like, things like that happen. There's a reason. You're the head man. The buck stops with you. You make a lot of money to deal with situations like this, in addition to all the pressure you have at a place like Nebraska where you have to win. There's a reason you have a lot of numbers behind the name. I don't feel as bad for Rule as maybe some people could. Yeah, he loses his right-hand man, but it's your job to deal with it, pick up the pieces, move forward. You have to win football games no matter what. That's the standard around here. No matter what happens on the field, no matter what happens off the field, it is your job to go and win football games. And Matt Rule has shown, I mean, he had a lot of drama off the field at a place like Baylor, and he's able to win football games. Didn't have a lot of support on the field at a place like Temple, and he's able to win football games. That's why he's the guy you bring in, because he's shown time and time in his career that he can overcome hardships off the field, hardships on the field, and lead to wins. Who I feel bad for is the guys in the room, and that's why I say the term ripped away. Because you have guys that, as I kind of laid out back in segment 1, Tommy Hill, a guy who showed a lot of development under Coach Cooper. That's his guy. The guy that took him from a talented athlete into a talented football player. You feel bad for him. A guy in Isaac Gifford, who, as I kind of laid out in segment 1, went from being a contributor to the defense to a leader on the defense. That's a credit to Tony White, and that's a credit to Evan Cooper, being able to bring him along and turn him into that kind of guy. A guy who comes back, didn't have to come back for another football season, but did, because partly the position coach that was here that had Isaac's best interests at heart and turned him into a better football player. You have a guy in Malcolm Hartzog, who's been kind of jostled around in his college career, was looking for some stability, looking for a place where he could settle in and become the best version of Malcolm Hartzog. Now he's got to adjust to a new position coach. You got a guy in Deshaun Singleton, who was returning from injury, had gotten to know Cooper last year, has done all this work coming back from injuries, trying to turn into the best version of himself. And now, in addition to rehabbing the injury, you have to go build a relationship with a new position coach. I mean, there's so many guys. And then you talk about, as I laid out in segment 1, 16 to 21, or 16 of the 21 guys you have in that room are first or second year guys that showed up because Evan Cooper was here, guys that were recruited by Evan Cooper, guys that wanted to come play for Evan Cooper. You feel bad for those guys. But one of the things that Matt Rule has talked about plenty, and this is going to be how you work through this, it's the brotherhood mentality of this football team. It's about the guys on the field more than it is about the coaches. And there's two sides of this. One is those guys have to band together. But I think there's been a phrase that we've heard a lot from Matt Rule, both in the Chasing Three, the series from last year. You hear about it in press conferences. One of us. You hear about that phrase a lot, and it comes from the top. It comes from the coaching staff. You hear it reiterated by the guys. It's about banding together and building a brotherhood. One of us. And to further add to this, you have Matt Rule posting the video, I don't think coincidentally last night, saying it's our time. That was the caption on the video.
I didn't watch that.
It's our turn to do our part.
Yeah.
Capital our on both of those. Our turn to do our part. He's reiterating that us.
Yeah.
Evan Cooper was with us. He's not with us anymore. It's about the guys that are in the room. You can feel bad for Evan. You can feel bad for yourself. But at the end of the day, it's our turn to do our part. There's no coincidence in the timing of that video in my mind.
Interesting. So without watching it, I think so during the video, they show like other sports,
yes,
right? So without watching it, I was under the impression that he was basically saying all these other sports are having success except us, so it's our turn to have success.
Yeah, and that's
is that basically what you're saying?
Something of the video. But I don't think it's a coincidence whenever you look at the tweet that the our is capitalized. He's trying to emphasize his brotherhood, like, hey, everyone else in university is doing well. It's time for us to band together and to make something of ourselves as well.
So what did you think of the Terrence Knighton situation?
Oh, we're getting there.
I'm jumping the gun.
You're jumping the gun a little bit. I think we might get there a little bit next segment.
Okay, that sounds good.
That's interesting.
By the way,
and I have thoughts.
I think you're looking too much into that video.
You think I am?
I think you are.
I don't think the timing of it's coincidental.
Well, because our was capitalized?
Yes. Whenever one of us in that brotherhood mentality has been emphasized so much, you think about how a team works through a situation like this. It's the guy next to you, playing for the guy next to you. That brotherhood mentality, if you got to band together and you got to overcome the tough times. That's what being a part of a team is.
So who do you think becomes Rule's right-hand man now?
It's an interesting question.
Yeah?
May have to play itself out. I don't know.
You think so? It's interesting.
It is interesting. Does he have to have a right-hand man? I mean, I think Terrence Knighton is a candidate, not to jump up there, but a guy that is, I guess, getting his coaching chops from Rule. And that's the thing I said about Cooper in segment 1, I think is really important here, is like Cooper was molded in the mold of Matt Rule. And that is about relationships with Cooper. He built the relationship, he built the trust before you could coach the player. And then once you do that, it's all about finding the athletic traits in guys that are special and developing that, turning into a football player. That's the mold that Evan Cooper is cut from. And I think that's why there's that added little bit of trust, because Cooper's been there through everything. And coaching-wise, stylistically, they're the same. Because of that development from Matt Rule, because of that guidance from Matt Rule. That's what makes this loss tough for Rule. But again, at the end of the day, it's Rule's job to go win football games to deal with things like this. So I think personally this probably hurts Matt Rule.
Yeah.
It probably pains him that it had to be like this.
And on the other side, too, Cooper was getting a lot of run. Good things were being said about him. You always want to go on and get a bigger position. Maybe he was on that trajectory, but sadly not anymore.
I mean, I think he had NFL interest last offseason from things he was taken care of. Passing game coordinator, got himself a bit of a bump. I should say defensive passing game coordinator, got himself a pay bump. Matt Rule saw him in as a part of the plan moving forward at Nebraska, as Eric chimes in. We'll get to that in just a second, maybe. But it comes down to brotherhood and leadership to me for this team to make it through this time, to get to fall camp. And both of those come from the top, I think. And that's why I think you have that post from Matt Rule last night. It's about the leadership from the top of Matt Rule setting the standard for the guys and having the guys band together as brothers and say it's not about the guy that we lost. It's not about feeling sorry for ourselves. It's about understanding the goals out there still in front of us, and we need to band together and join together as a team in order to accomplish that.
Yeah, well said.
That's with a new position coach. That's with self-doubt. That's with the hurt that it probably leaves to have your position coach leave in this way right before the season starts. It's about brotherhood, banding together, and trusting the plan too.
Yeah, exactly. Continuing the mission, because you do have a good team right now. You can do big things. Yeah, you're right. Just get through it.
So, never a dull week in Nebraska.
Never, unfortunately.
Never a dull week in Nebraska. We'll get to Terrence Knighton, the drama of Sunday. If you missed that, we'll catch you up on that. Did it mean anything? Did it mean nothing? We'll get to that in just a second. We'll also get some thoughts on the impact of John Butler, former Buffalo Bills secondary coach and defensive passing game coordinator there in Buffalo. He is, by all accounts, from what we're hearing, on his way to Nebraska, not signed, sealed, and delivered just yet, at least from what I can see on social media. As soon as that does happen, if that's today or later this week, we'll let you know and get some reaction to that. So we'll get you thoughts on John Butler as well. No swear jar name jar for me.
Good job.
Got it this segment.
The show's not done yet.
Elijah Herbel, true professional. And then we'll also have thoughts from a couple of black shirts. Mr. Blackshirt himself, Charlie McBride, will join us to lead off hour 2. We'll also have an extended chat with Jay Moore, giving his thoughts on this situation. Coach Cooper, Coach Butler, what are his thoughts? That's all coming your way in hour 2. Again, Shmi's got the week off. It's Will Wilson sitting in with me here in the studios of KFOR. Elijah Herbel taking you through this show today. We'll be with you all week long. Again, a reminder, check out the podcast. Check us out in stream. Find us on the Hail Varsity YouTube page. Get your thoughts in. It's going to be the easiest way for me, considering I am hosting and trying to run phone lines at the same time. So when you get your thoughts in, join us on the YouTube channel at Hail Varsity on YouTube. We'll be back with more after the break.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Back from a holiday weekend here on Hail Varsity Radio. Hope you enjoyed your 4th of July and have all 10 fingers as well. usual in Nebraska. No slow days, plenty to talk about on a Monday. Took a couple of days off. And, of course, it's some of the biggest news of the summer. So we're in here reacting to it. An open first hour for you. Get in the stream, the Hail Varsity YouTube page. Leave us a comment, leave us a thought, and let us know what you think. Will Wilson sitting in here with me this week for Chris Schmidt, who has the week off.
I wanted to ask you, because earlier today you mentioned about spending money on fireworks. Are you willing to share how much money you spend on fireworks this season?
I said last year it can be an expectation for me in any given year to spend totality on 4th of July. So this includes fireworks plus food plus beverages, somewhere in that 500 to 1,000 range.
Good for you. Good for you. You're a true American.
Yeah. Well, I took care of the PlayStation 5 last year. I heard a little birdie told me you're a new PlayStation 5 owner, Will.
I might have bought one earlier today, yes.
Congrats.
Thank you.
First off, congrats. So you saved firework money and spent it on a PlayStation instead.
That's right.
I got that out of the way last year. I had a good month of umpiring in June.
Good.
And that being said, I still stayed under budget for my 4th of July as a whole. I think totality this year was just over $450, beverages, food, and fireworks, which is pretty solid. Over half of that was spent on fireworks. Well over half was spent on fireworks. But that's a good number for me.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
Good job.
That's a number. It's my favorite holiday of the year. I got my money's worth out of it. I saved some fireworks for potential future use later this year. Don't call the cops on me, listeners. I promise I'll use them responsibly. And I enjoyed my couple days away.
Good.
Feel refreshed, rejuvenated.
Good for you. I'm happy.
Ready to go.
Happy for you.
We're settling back into the radio flow. I'm not going to mess up any more names as the day goes on here. Plenty more thoughts, though, coming your way on the resignation of Evan Cooper, the expected hire of John Butler, who's joining us from the NFL. The Buffalo Bills, Houston Texans are his previous stops. What's interesting with him, and what I think should be noted here, is John Butler was a guy that did not have a job coming into this season. And I don't think that's because of a lack of ability. He's a guy that's well respected. Sounds like most of the players in his room in both Houston and in Buffalo liked him as a defensive back coach. The reason that was listed for him mutually agreeing to part ways with the Bills was that the upward mobility to go find yourself a defensive coordinator spot was not going to be there with the Bills. And when you think about the type of season that the Bills had this year, it puts you kind of behind the 8 ball in terms of being able to go out and find yourself a step-up type job. You get what I'm saying? That the coaching carousel in the NFL is spinning in early January. In college, it's mid-December, even early December. And whenever you're a playoff team that is making a deep run into the postseason, you find yourself trying to find a new gig in late January, early February. Timing-wise, just reading the tea leaves here, that's not ideal for a guy. Because these new staffs that are coming to the NFL, they have their staffs in place by the time late January and February rolls around, because the NFL, much like college, 12 months a year, you don't get many days off. You're straight into scouting for free agency, scouting for the NFL draft. You have to have your position coaches in mind, the scheme you want to have in mind. Same for college, and it's even earlier in college. So I don't think Coach Butler was out of a job because of a lack of ability. I think he's got the resume, pretty well respected. I think it's honestly, for Matt Rule putting this together quickly, one of the best hires you could have made, because you weren't going to be able to go poach a sitting coach at this point in the year.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to just say that this is a good hire because the dude has a lot of experience. He just started coaching back in like 95, so he's been coaching for a long time, which means, I think that's why a lot of people are quick to think that this is a good hire. And yeah, I mean, he's got some good things to his resume. But the one time he's not a defensive coordinator right now. That might not be a good argument.
I think he has 1 year defensive coordinating under his belt in his career.
At Penn State, and that was in 2013, and I think in team total defense, he finished 60th. The team was 60th in the country, which, again, I don't know, isn't terrible. So, I don't know. I'm kind of a wait and see.
Yep.
I'm kind of a wait and see on this one.
I concur. In that this was thrown together quickly.
Yep.
Resume standpoint, I think Coach Butler, I did it again. In the swear jar.
You said you weren't going to do it again.
I did it one more time. That's 50 cents. Wait. If you're on stream, you can see, maybe you can hear him. 2 quarters in the swear jar. I will say, though, there's been a lot of times, and let's compare it to a normal job. How many times have you been working a job and somebody with this shiny resume comes in? Everyone in management's excited for them. You're excited to work for them. Wow, they worked here and here and here. And they show up to work and you go, oh, this guy sucks. Or this lady sucks.
You have no idea.
And maybe not from a jobs performance point of view. They could be great at that. But from a personality point of view, from whatever, it happens. So that's why I'm not ready to anoint Coach Butler. I think in an ideal world, I think Matt Rule would like Coach Butler to probably be his defensive coordinator in waiting, quote unquote, because of the experience that he has, the multitude of coaches he's worked under. He has experience coordinating a defense unlike anybody else in this defense. Like, he's got it on resume, but that's why I'm also wait and see in the anointing phase of things, because this had to come together pretty quickly. Sounds like Matt Rule got his top guy, but at the end of the day, just because someone's got a shiny resume and they do well in a brief interview process doesn't mean they're truly going to fit in with the culture at a workplace, with the personalities in a workplace, with the personalities in a defensive back room to even go micro with it.
Okay.
I'm not ready to anoint yet, but I think from a resume point of view, I think you got one of the best guys you could have gotten.
I agree. Also, like, has Rule lost your trust? I mean, he hasn't lost mine. I trust him to make good hires. He knows so many people. He's got a pretty good staff right now. I trust him to make good hires. So hopefully, this won't make me lose trust with Rule.
And Rule, to his credit, has always had a plan in place. That was the title of our show on Saturday as well, a plan for everything. That seems to be the Matt Rule way. No matter what happens, he's got a plan in place. He had a plan in place here to bring in Coach Butler.
Yeah, I'm just laughing at KG's comment. Sorry. He's wondering what the hell's going on. He hasn't been here and Schmitty's gone.
Okay, we'll reset if you're just joining us here before we get out this segment. Schmitty had a planned week off, which I think we laid out in the best of shows. KG just told himself for not checking out the best of shows last week. Thought you were a true fan, KG. Just kidding. Love you, KG. That being said, Schmitty is out this week in combination with the vacation. Schmitty has also broken his ankle, a golf cart injury for Schmitty. Had the left foot hanging out the golf cart, took it a little too close to a retaining wall. I've been told, my sources on the ground tell me alcohol was not a factor.
Well, and to be fair, when you watch a majority of people driving golf carts, they usually have their foot hanging out.
Yeah.
For some reason. I've never understood. I do it too.
I think it's kind of casual feeling.
It is. You feel cool when you do it. So I don't mind. I understand why Schmitty was doing. You got to look out for those walls, though.
Yeah, so he had it too close to a retaining wall. Got his foot caught in between a wall and a golf cart. He heard a pop, went and got x-rays, and did have a small fracture line in his ankle. So he's on the bright side, weight bearing. He's in the walking boot. He's able to walk around. He probably would have been able to make it into work this week had he not taken the week off. I just think it's funny to add in there. Schmitty, though, has taken this week off. He'll be back with us next week. Plenty of good stuff coming your way next week. Actually, we'll let you know as we get a little bit closer, including maybe a Phil Steele appearance.
Ooh.
So Schmitty will be back in next week. It's Will Wilson with me here on a Monday. Hail Varsity Radio is going to roll forward following the break. Is there anything with Terrence Knighton? We'll get into that after the break. It seems like no, but it was a weird day on Sunday.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Finishing up hour one here on a Monday edition of Hail Varsity Radio, back from the holiday break. Glad to have you with us here, as plenty to talk about. Never a dull week in Nebraska. Especially true over the past 3-4 days or so. Evan Cooper resigning his position as Nebraska defensive backs coach. We're talking a little bit about Coach John Butler. What could he be bringing to the defensive back room if that hire is completed as expected, considering there's no other names out there, and it sounds like he's been in Lincoln around the team. I'm expecting that hire to be completed. I keep on refreshing Twitter during the breaks and seeing if I'm missing any official announcements being made. None just yet. Chat here on the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. If you see anything while we're on the air, let us know. We want to be as up-to-date as possible, relying upon you. So thank you, chat, in advance. One thing I do want to say as we talk about this drama, there's plenty of drama on a Sunday, at least on the social media side of things, for Husker football, and we'll lay this out for you. Following Friday and Saturday, I think everyone was on a razor's edge, thinking, okay, what's the next shoe going to be? What's going to happen here? This is weird. Everything is weird. As we kind of said, never a dull week, never a dull weekend. Yesterday, this would have been probably noon. The interesting development, which has since been reversed, was that Coach Terrence Knighton, Coach Pot Roast, one of my favorites, loved his time with the Broncos. Never forget that sack on Tom Brady in the AFC title game. It's a legendary moment. Always remember that third down.
And that's the only thing you've remembered since.
Pot Roast comes through, brings down Tom Brady, essentially sends the Broncos to the Super Bowl. Always remember that moment.
As in it's the last good thing to happen to Broncos fans.
Well, they won a Super Bowl.
Right. That's what I mean.
Yeah. And this is actually the year that they went off and played the Seahawks, if I remember correctly, and got absolutely thrashed.
That's right.
43-8.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, back to my point. Pot Roast, Coach Pot Roast, I should say, use his proper title, yesterday wiped Nebraska briefly, we're talking 3 or 4 hours here, from his Twitter profile. His bio was CEO of Death Row, which was a reference, that's kind of the nickname for the defensive line among the Husker football team. Death Row is the nickname for the defensive line. He removed that from his bio. He changed his profile picture from kind of a stylized art image of him wearing his Husker gear to an image of him playing in Washington. And everyone around went, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
It was like that for 3, 4, maybe 5 hours before it got changed back.
Which, by the way, I'm very, what's the word I'm looking for? Not surprised, but impressed how people catch this stuff. Because I would have no thought to check out, oh, wait, this is happening with Evan Cooper. Let me look at Terrence Knighton's Twitter page. Like, why would I have any reason to do that? I find it impressive, so please continue.
The Twitter sleuths be sleuthin'.
Yes.
That's what they do.
Definitely. What else do we have to do?
Well, maybe it's also just a product of my generation that, like, for some reason, social media is so ingrained within mid-20s, you and I will, our lives, that maybe just comes naturally. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I still think that's super weird. Yeah, without saying too much, I don't think Coach Knighton's going anywhere. Super weird that happened.
And it's since gone back to normal.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
And it's weird. If this was on a random Tuesday and it happened for a couple hours, my ears would be perked. But the fact that it happened right after Coach Cooper, who by all accounts was good friends with Terrence Knighton, happens just after that. I mean, in the modern age, timing-wise like that, you got to know everyone's going to be like, what the hell's going on here? Combine that with the fact that you use your Twitter for recruiting, for other purposes, you're going to wipe everything from Nebraska. I still think it's super weird. I don't know what happened. I don't know what went down, but I think something did.
This is Christian Peter. I'm sorry, but the stories I have about Charlie are not appropriate for the public.
The right case of the Mondays. It's Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, on Hail Varsity Radio.
Back in here, hour 2 of Hail Varsity Radio. We are powered by Cornhead Lager. Will Wilson has stepped aside. He has got Darts League for the rest of the night, so it's going to be me taking you through this show here. Elijah Herbel. You can follow me on Twitter at Herbal Essences, and we're excited to kick off the Blackshirt Hour as we do every single Monday with Mr. Blackshirt himself, longtime defensive coordinator at Nebraska. It's Charlie McBride with us here on Hail Varsity. And Charlie, it's good to get caught up with you on a Monday. I want to hear all about the 4th of July weekend. No broken ankles, I would hope. All 10 fingers still?
Well, it was the quietest one. It was the quietest one I ever spent. The whole lake was quiet until after they had the fireworks. And then we thought the lake was going to blow up. It did. It was a show went on till 3 a.m.
No.
Yeah, and well, we were. I closed the door and I can't hear anything. But it was quiet. Actually, it was the quietest one we've had because my son and the next door neighbor has a girlfriend now, and my son didn't come here on the 4th, and he just came day after the 4th. So we had no fireworks here. Normally, we really blow the place up, and we didn't this year, so it was quiet.
Well, maybe you'd like this because your story reminded me. My roommate has a dog, Bella, and she has hated fireworks her entire life, but she's 14 now. She can't hear anything, and she just slept through the entire 4th of July. I don't even think she knew there was anything out of the normal.
That's right. That's what they do, but after they're old, then you got to watch out now because they're about ready to die, and they have for just say they're guaranteed for 1 year of fireworks. That's it.
Well, Charlie, before we get diving into football news, as it was a busy weekend, I got to ask, did you throw anything on the grill, any wings for your 4th of July holiday?
We did not really do anything overwhelming except order pizza. We didn't this year. Now, we're going to probably do some stuff over the next weekend and so forth. We've got my youngest son coming, or is here now, but he's the one that eats a lot of brats and hamburgers and cooks a lot. And his 2 kids are both really good at cooking. And so we got one of those big grills where, we've got 2 grills. We got one that, it's just it's like they have in a restaurant. You cook everything on it, eggs, everything.
Oh, one of the flat tops, yeah.
Yeah, flat top. And then we have regular grills. So we got them both going. And we got one dog here. All it does is walk around and look for food on the floor.
Dog's living a good life, huh?
Yeah, it's easy. He takes he is easy. I call him. That's what I call him. And but anyway, his real name is Bentley, and he sure doesn't look like a Bentley. I know that.
It's Charlie McBride with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Charlie, let's talk football. A busy weekend of Husker news, Husker drama, if you want to call it that. Friday night, we get the news that Nebraska defensive backs coach Evan Cooper has resigned. Saturday morning, we get the news that it's likely going to be John Butler, the former Buffalo Bills defensive backs coach, as the new defensive backs coach at Nebraska, and potentially, with his career aspirations that he's already laid out before, potentially your defensive coordinator in waiting should Tony White be leaving for a head coaching opportunity. And I want to get your thoughts, with this being so close to the season, on what type of impact do you think this has, losing your defensive backs coach less than a month out from the start of fall camp?
I would say that it will have some, but I don't think it's going to have as much maybe as a lot of people think, because a lot of people came here because you'd be surprised, because of the school, because of the situation that's here, because of the head coach. And, the head coach runs a lot of things and has a lot of background and good people. And I think when he talks to recruits and tells them who they're going to be playing for, I think that makes a difference. But a lot of it, I think, is the head coach. And you get a lot of schools. A lot of the big schools, SC and so forth. They have turnovers like crazy, and because guys get head jobs, and it's one. I remember Michigan State way back when I started coaching. There were guys leaving out of there. They probably had more head coaches in college football than anybody, and it was because the head coach really pushed it.
It's Charlie McBride with us here on Hail Varsity Radio, giving his thoughts. Evan Cooper out the door at Nebraska as defensive backs coach. John Butler going to be moving on in. And Coach, from a player point of view, how do you think they respond to this close to the season? I guess if you were to put your cleats on and put yourself in the minds of the players, how do you think it affects them? I mean, it's not in the middle of the season, whenever I think you could really have some ramifications. You have some time to get to know a new guy, but from a player point of view, whenever you spent 18 months building trust, building relationship with a coach, and now you got to start afresh, how do you think that affects them? And I guess even from a coaching perspective, how do you think you handle that if you're a new coach stepping in?
I think after a few days, they start thinking about what's real. That they came here because of a certain person, but they came here because they like the university. I mean, you can get down to the personnel thing and Coach so-and-so has left, so I'm leaving too. Now, anybody that does that, don't worry about he isn't going to cross the goal line, so don't worry about it. Those kind of people are just not men. I mean, they don't think about what's real. I mean, they came here for a reason, and the one thing is when you have a head coach leave, it makes a big difference. An assistant coach, there's liable to be a better one come in than you had before, so that you never know. I remember I lost all my coaches, head coach, all the assistants, everybody went. And I remember talking with, I think there was 4 guys. We all decided we're going to transfer for about 20 minutes or half an hour. And then we looked at each other and said, how stupid can we be? And then we ended up winning the Big 8 conference and so on as time went on, and beat everybody at least. We beat everybody out of 3, some 3 times, some 2 out of 3, and including Oklahoma and that. And so, you know, it worked out. I remember draft, we had 11 guys drafted. And I mean, it was, you know, it was all different, and we're probably as close a team as we've ever been. I'm still close to a lot of the guys I played with. 2 of my sons have godfathers that were players, and of course some of them are gone, but one of them's gone. But you know, that's how it works. And you know, players are not. They're not as like they used to be. I think the scary thing now is more how much is some kids are going to go to the dollar bill. I mean, that's just shame to say, but you know, and some kids are going to go there because they really want to go to school there when they made their choice. And I'd say that 3/4 of them are in that bush. And you know, when you get kids that have spent time with a loyal coach and a loyal high school bunch of guys, they're going to stay the same.
It's Coach Charlie McBride with us here. Another Monday with Charlie, kicking off the Blackshirt Hour here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Coach, from a moving forward type standpoint, the mentality you have to instill in your team if you're Matt Rule, how do you instill, I guess, brotherhood within a team? Is that something that guys have to find themselves? Can you instill that from the top? Because that's one of the things that's going to be important, I think, from Matt Rule's perspective, trying to keep this team together, and especially the defensive back room as you look forward to the season, keeping their eyes on the goal and keeping them together as a brotherhood. Is that something that can be instilled, or is that something that guys have to find on their own?
Okay, the first thing I tell them, I'd say, is honesty. Shoot it right at them. Tell them exactly what they're going to, you know, what they're going to hear, but what isn't true. Tell them exactly what's going to happen, and take your chance. If it sounds, some of it sounds pretty bad. That's just part of it. But don't tell kids something. Try to powder puff everything and do that. Just be honest with them, and I'll tell you, they appreciate that more than anything.
Coach, as we look ahead to the future, what's coming in, you got Coach John Butler. He's set to take the reins in the defensive back room. Not officially confirmed just yet, but that is the name we're hearing as being the next defensive backs coach. 10 years of NFL experience, most recently with the Buffalo Bills as their defensive backs coach and as their defensive passing game coordinator. And I want to get your thoughts on the room that he steps into, what type of challenge that he has, not necessarily off the field, but also on the field, being a guy who goes from coaching professionals to back to coaching college athletes, as well as the added drama you have of stepping into a group of guys that midway through the offseason just lost their position. Coach, what type of challenge do you think he has here?
Let me tell you what, if you're a player, you're so fired up you don't know what to do, because you're talking about a guy that you know has connections in the NFL. You know that he's going to do the things that, you know, that are going to get you there. I mean, he's been totally experienced with it. All those years of just being in the NFL and being with other people, and he's seeing all the different things. You know, guys say, well, I stay in one place, you know, and I traveled around all over the place in the summertime to try to learn other things, and I just didn't stay, you know, stagnant with this is what we do. I was trying to find something better, and he's got something better. I mean, these guys that are here, I'd be thrilled to death to have the guy here that has all the experience he has in the NFL and been to other teams and been around and has more people that he knows now than probably the other coach had. So if they're thinking in the right boat, I mean, you got a good deal. I mean, maybe not, but I think right now I'd go with the experience.
So if you're putting yourself in the shoes of Coach Butler, what's the first thing you want to build? Is it trust on the field or trust off the field?
Well, both. I mean, there's no question. The kids, if you tell a kid he's going to do something, you better do it. You better follow through with it. I mean, there's no other way. I mean, it's just the way it is. And I made a couple of mistakes in my coaching career that I wish I hadn't done, and told kids one thing and told them, you're going to play in this game, and one of the kids didn't play because of the game situation. But to explain it to them, that doesn't count. I mean, that doesn't count. You said you were going to put me in the third quarter and and you better do it. And and I wished I had of. It wouldn't have made any difference in the score, and so on and so forth. And I screwed it up. And so I learned something right there. And I don't think he trusted me from then on. And he was a senior anyway, but that didn't make any difference. But it was just the idea. I still live with that. I mean, it's when you tell a kid something and you don't follow through with it, you're a liar. It's what you are. And you're going to get it. And when the next kid that comes in, you recruit, you're going to say, yeah, I played for that guy. He's a liar. Well, I can't explain how much it means to be honest with players. Tell them the truth. When you're recruiting them, he wants to know how many kids are ahead of him. We got 7 kids ahead of you. Okay, and 3 of them are walk-ons. So on and so forth. Let them, if you haven't got the guts to compete, we don't want you around here anyway.
It's Coach Charlie McBride with us here on Hail Varsity Radio, another Blackshirt Monday with Mr. Blackshirt himself, Coach McBride. And Coach, last thought here before we get you out. What's just your response to the fact that it always seems to be a dramatic offseason for Husker football? Somebody's always talking about Nebraska. There's always something going on.
I think that's pretty exciting myself. It's good for the press, right? Yeah. So they can't be unhappy. But I think the same thing goes. I think if you go through you go through this every year, and these players, when you're recruiting and you talk about this stuff, you talk about maybe I'm going to leave, maybe I'm going to quit coaching, maybe I'm going to do this, maybe I'm going to do that. I've had players say, Coach, I'm coming here. I said, well, wait, whoa. And here I am. I should be jumping all over the guy. But I like I said before, I told one kid, listen, I want you to go out right now and walk through this campus and to see how you feel. You haven't been on your own through the campus. You had some guy directing you or somebody telling you this and that. Go by yourself and see how you feel walking around the place. You may go out there and say, geez, I don't want to go to school here. Or you may come back and say, wow, this is what I want to do. Or I feel better about it, or things like that. So, you want them to go home and think about it. Go home and talk to your parents about it. Go and talk to your coach about it. So that when you make a commitment, it's a commitment. It's not I'm going to go visit 12 more places or what the heck then. And when I was then, you could go as many schools as you wanted to. Now, it's limited, but they got more open, able to visit campus more times than I think we had. Maybe we had one visit, total visit, and we see now maybe kids have been on the campus 2 and 3, 4 times. So it's a whole different recruiting deal. So you have to be on your toes a lot better, and you have to get ready to answer the questions and answer them honestly. Because they're going to try to bust you. They're going to try to find out. If anybody pays attention to the political stuff, I try not to, but, this guy said this and this guy said that. Well, that's not true, and this is not true. But all I tell them is if there's something that comes up about our school or anybody or about me, call me on the phone and let's get it straightened out right away, and not have you go sleep on something that you think it's happening without any feedback.
It's Charlie McBride with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, appreciate your time here on a Monday. We'll get caught up next week. Schmidt will be back next Monday, I promise, next time we chat with you. Really appreciate you.
Will he have his golf clubs with him?
I don't think he will. I think he'll have a walking boot on, though.
Okay. Inside being with you.
All right, Coach. Talk to you next week.
Take care of yourself and be happy. You got to be happy.
Oh,
okay?
I will.
Okay.
See you next week, Coach.
Bye now.
All-State, 2-year starter, and rush in for the Big Red and NFL vet.
Is Dudeness or Duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
It's Blackshirt Jay Moore with Hail Varsity Radio.
Second here on a Monday edition of Hail Varsity Radio as the Blackshirt Hour rolls forward. Elijah Herbel joined here by former Husker Blackshirt NFLer Jay Moore with us on Hail Varsity Radio. And Jay, it's good to get caught up with you. How you doing on a Monday? You recovering from the holiday weekend?
Yes, I am recovering from the holiday weekend. It was great. A lot of fun with family. Some golf was played. Some cocktails were had. So overall, it was a very successful 4th of July festivities.
Now, you didn't break an ankle on the golf course, did you?
Break an ankle?
Yeah, no. Some people that we know by the name of Chris Schmidt may have broken an ankle on the golf course this weekend.
Good point. Yeah, I did see that. No, I did not break an ankle. I did not step on, hang my foot out a cart. That's usually you can get that done by pulling up around a curb or anything. So no, I still have both ankles are in good shape this afternoon.
I hate to laugh, but what a comedic turn of events a little bit. Of all the sports you could get hurt playing, you didn't even get hurt playing it. It was driving the golf cart around. We'll get a full story from Schmidt whenever he's back in next week, but that's a comedic way to break an ankle out of all the ways you could break an ankle. And I don't mean to make light of a bad situation because I feel for Schmidt this week, but man.
It's easy to do. I've seen people do it. I catch myself hanging. It's so easy to do, hanging your foot out the cart, and you come around a curb or something, and it just gets, you don't think about it, but I've heard a lot of horror stories about people do it. I find myself doing it all the time, and I'm like, all right, don't do that, dummy. You don't want to dislocate an ankle. So that's too bad. That's poor guy. He can't catch a break.
Well, quickly here, what is the worst golf injury you've seen or heard about? And it maybe doesn't have to be actually playing, but worst injury you've seen or heard about on the golf course?
I've seen a guy get hit on the head with a golf ball off the tee. I was at the Masters in 2017. And I was just off the 8. I was up a little further on the 8th fairway, and there was probably a couple guys sitting in chairs, I don't know, another 50, 60 yards away. And it sounded like a ball hit a cart path. And we looked over, and the guy's obviously cussing, and he's holding his head, and, blood is coming through his hands. So he just got plunked on the head in a practice round by someone's drive, and that's by far the worst. That's by far the worst injury I've seen.
That's no good. Now, I a couple weeks ago had some people hitting into us, and I was wondering, I wonder how bad it would actually hurt. And I've never been hit by a golf ball that's been flying through the
I have.
Have you?
Yeah, but it was from 100 yards away, so it wasn't like a driver or anything like that. It doesn't feel great, but it wasn't like the end of the world either. So I just gave my buddy some crap for hitting such a terrible shot, and then moved on with my day.
Jay Moore with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Jay, while we're talking injuries, you still have all 10 fingers, all 10 toes from your 4th of July, yeah?
Yes, yeah. There were some Roman candles, that got held, but other than that, there was no craziness. It was a very successful 4th of July. It was when you got a 7-year-old at home who's getting pretty brave, you had to remind him of certain tactics and antics that we used to do as kids, and so he learned rather quickly.
The old Roman candle wars, maybe.
Yeah, yes. We told him about what we used to do, and he thought that was pretty cool. I'm like, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. There's no one needs to lose an eye or get burned or whatever it is. So we'll keep it low key for now. You can do that stuff when you get older when we're not around.
Well, Jay, you say no craziness on your 4th of July. Husker football experiencing some craziness on the 5th of July into the weekend. Evan Cooper announcing his resignation on Friday night. It appears that John Butler is going to be the guy coming over from the Buffalo Bills, the defensive back coach. We'll get to Butler here in just a second. But I want to get your thoughts, your initial reaction. Schmitty and Kranak did a great show on Saturday morning, giving their kind of rapid-fire reaction to Evan Cooper. But Evan Cooper's the guy that's been around Matt Rule for, all of his stops, Temple, Baylor, the Carolina Panthers, now at Nebraska. He's been a mainstay of a Matt Rule staff, a trusted friend, and a guy that has been really important in the talent evaluation process in addition to his on-the-field role. Just want to get your thoughts on what that means for Nebraska. Evan Cooper announcing his resignation, no longer going to be with the team.
Yeah, obviously rather surprised when that news came out later in the day, and just kind of looking through social media and, saw Isaac Gifford's post. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. And then you scroll a little further and you see all the other media guys, local beat writer guys commenting on it. And I'm just like, man, that's a very unusual time for a guy to leave. Obviously, you're a month away from starting training camp and 2 months away from the season starting. So obviously there's some more, I'm guessing details will come out for the reason for this. And it's unfortunate because obviously Evan, he's been with Coach Rule for a long time and has that relationship and knows what needs to get done. And obviously in the defense that performed so well last year, and honestly probably I don't know if it's the weakest part, but it might be the thinnest part of the team is in that secondary. So a new faces have to come in here rather quickly and learn. But it sounds like if all the reports are true, that Nebraska's going to get a good one. A guy that knows what he's doing and has been in the Big Ten, has been in the NFL. So I think that news will probably come out here rather quickly that with the new hire. But yeah, you don't ever want to have these instances happen, and but they do. You learn from it, and you make the necessary changes, and you try to move on and get better from it. And I think Nebraska, I don't know if they've upgraded, but I think they've found a really good replacement if all the reports are true.
How about the timing of this, Jay? With it coming just after the 4th of July, you made it through your month of recruiting, and we've talked about the importance of Evan Cooper as a recruiter and as a talent evaluator, but timing perspective from the upcoming season, this being almost the start of fall camp. You got Big Ten Media Days just a couple of weeks away, and then you're going to be into the swing of fall camp. What do you make of the timing of this from how it could affect the team and specifically the defensive backs room? Is now instead of trying to lock in and focus on a 2024 season, you're building new relationships, you're building a relationship with a new coach, trying to find the ins and outs of that. How do you think this is going to affect the players from a timing point of view?
It's not, it's not great, obviously. The timing of it is poor. But it is what it is. You got to figure it out. Like I said, if Butler's the guy, he's going to come in and get caught up to speed as quickly as possible. Coach White is there, and they obviously have other guys that help out with the secondary that they can step in and keep things together. But you're going to have to. I think luckily you have guys like Isaac Gifford in the secondary who have been around the block or leaders with the team and the defense, so he can step in there and be a pseudo coach. You have Tommy Hill, who's played a lot of football. You have some younger guys that might be slightly affected with it, and you have guys that came in here. And the hard part is when you get recruited by Evan Cooper, and this happens, and you build relationships. But that's just kind of the world in general. Things happen that you don't expect. You got to adjust and adapt and make the most of it. And I think that's what they'll do. But the timing of it's never good. But I think, like I said, it sounds like they found a really good replacement in a very short time. And I love the fact that he's been in the Big Ten at Penn State, and he's with the Bills. So and the Bills, defense has been really, really good in the last few years. So, like I said, I can't speak to it being an upgrade, but I think it's a really good hire in a short time frame for a guy that really, honestly, is. I don't know if this is a lateral move or not, but I mean, this is a guy that he was a defensive coordinator in the NFL and in the Big Ten. So him stepping in a secondary role is interesting. So I also think in a case like this, where we know Tony White's been on, is probably going to get a head coaching job here rather quickly, is if John Butler is brought in, is he a guy who could step in and replace Tony White as defensive coordinator? We're talking maybe a year or two down the road when Tony finally gets that head coaching job that he wants.
It's Jay Moore with us here, Blackshirt Mondays on Hail Varsity Radio. The Blackshirt Hour rolls forward. And Jay, one of the things I think you can speak on is the difference in coaching between college and the NFL. And Cooper's a guy that, as he kind of laid out, has experience at both, a little bit more experience in the NFL, at least recently, spending almost 10 years in the NFL. What is that difference in coaching like from your experience, between the coaching you received at Nebraska in college and the coaching you received in the NFL? How does that change? And I guess what type of adjustments will he have to make as he transitions from NFL back to the college in terms of what the day-to-day coaching looks like on the practice field and in the game?
Yeah, it's not much different. The scheme of things is pretty similar. How the rules in the NFL are vastly different. There's, illegal contact is in NFL. Pass interference is obviously a spot foul instead of a 15-yard penalty. So those are some of those things. You got to coach guys differently. But overall, I mean, you still got to, technique and understanding route concepts and playing well from the defense and communicating. It's all the same type of stuff. So that doesn't really change. Recruiting is something you don't have to do in the NFL. You show up, you coach the guys bring in, and you coach them to your best abilities. Now you got to recruit some guys and get that involved, and your relationships are a little deeper with the kids you recruit, and then you coach them on the field. Coach the same way. So I think nothing. It shouldn't be too, like I said, changeful.
Jay, from a scheme perspective, do you have to learn a 3-3-5 if you're coming in there? That's not something he has been experienced in. Is that going to be an adjustment, or is defensive back just defensive back?
Well, I think that you're talking more with a 3-3-5 scheme is generally you're kind of talking to more of your front seven guys. That extra defensive back in there, like Isaac is a hybrid type of guy where he's probably playing down more in the box and in the run game. But there's a little adjustment. I mean, it's a nickel, right? It's a nickel coverage. So you run that every day, every game, you practice it every week in the NFL. It's the same type of concepts. It's just communicating. That's the biggest thing is in the secondary. You have to communicate. You have to communicate with linebackers. You got to communicate with secondary, the safeties. Everyone has to be on the same page. Otherwise, you're going to get diced up. So really not a huge adjustment. Like I said, it's maybe some terminology is different than what he's used. Maybe a certain route concept or a certain coverage or just a certain technique might be different than what he's had in the last year or so. But that's an easy pickup for the coach. I mean, when you've been involved in football this long, you've kind of heard it all. And you just got to change your verbiage a little bit. It shouldn't take them much to kind of hop on that train.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
It's Jay Moore with us here. The Blackshirt Hour rolls forward. Another Monday on Hail Varsity Radio. Elijah Herbel in for Schmitty. He's got the week off. And Jay, as we talk the Husker defense and defensive back room, to zoom out just a little bit and discuss the room as a whole, That opposite corner spot is something that we have talked about with you. It's something we've talked about with other guests and something we've talked about plenty this offseason. You feel good about Tommy Hill. The other corner spot, a little bit up in the air. You feel good about Isaac Gifford. You feel good about the safeties. Another question you have is Hartzog. Where does he slot into the defensive back room this year? And with all those things in mind, now a new face comes into the defensive back room to take charge and be a leader. What do you make of that defensive back room, and does this add to your concern for the defensive back room heading into 2024? Because you have a spot, that opposite corner spot, that could be the biggest question mark on the defense as you enter fall camp.
Yeah, I think it's like I said earlier, I don't know if it's a weakness, but it's not the deepest group. You have some some guys who have played a lot of football and really good football. You've had some guys that can step in and got hurt and banged up last year that hopefully can step in there and stay healthy and play. Having a position coach change a month before camp is not obviously the greatest of things. But I think what's going to help these guys is how good our front, you want to call them front five guys, front four. That's the strength of your team. So in general, that should help them out. As long as everyone stays healthy, that's just the biggest thing. It's the thin, right? They still have a ton of depth, a lot of young players. So as long as they, like I said, they stay healthy, that's just with any position group in general. You got to stay healthy. But it's just a little different this year. And but like I said, like a ton of guys have played a ton of football, a ton of snaps. I think we have guys like Isaac and Tommy back there already. Keeping everyone on the same page, and Hartzog's played a bunch as well. So, with the D-line and how good they can play, it should take a little bit of a load off of them. And again, if you stop the run up front and you get teams in third and predictable, second and predictables, and they're gonna throw the ball, they'll be just fine and adapting and taking care of that back end.
Schematically, Jay, with that experience you talk about both on the back end and on that front seven, can you hide a spot on the defense such as the cornerback position? And you talk about that offensively somewhat. You can hide some of your weaknesses through scheme. So you don't have the best rushing attack, but you have a great quarterback. You can use some of that quarterback running ability to hide that weakness or some of that passing ability. Can you do anything similarly defensively, or with the way offenses like to attack, especially in the modern NFL, modern college football and modern NFL, is it even possible to hide a spot such as a cornerback spot if you don't feel great about what you have?
Well, it's tough. You got to kind of pick your poison, right? If you want to hide a guy, you probably got to play a little more zone. You got to help him out. If you want to be aggressive and blitz, you kind of put them on island and you're in man-to-man situations. So it's tough. You don't want to. You don't want to try to hide a guy. But it all just kind of depends on how you want to operate. Do you want to play aggressive or do you don't want to play aggressive? I know Tony White in this defense, they want to play aggressive. They want to be unique and be multiple and get after you in different ways. So it's going to be tough to hide guys because they're going to be put in tough situations. It all kind of depends on what the offense wants to do. Do they want to come out in 3 wide receiver sets or 4 wide receiver sets and do some unique things? It's easier to hide guys when they're playing probably more in a pro style offense where it's a little more downhill running attack, and you don't have they don't have burners or big time prospects. But I think it's just hard to hide guys if you want to be aggressive. It just kind of depends on who your defensive coordinator is. So and my guess is in this defense, it's probably hard to hide guys. You have to cover a guy, 30 yards down the field, but you also have to fit in the run game. And so the defensive lineman, you just have to rush the passer and stop the run. But you have to do a lot of things as a corner or a safety. That's what's hard. The safety has to fill downhill in a B gap potentially or a C gap in a run fit, but also has to cover a tight end 30 yards down the field. So it's tough to really hide guys nowadays in football in general.
It's Jay Moore with us here, another Blackshirt Monday on Hail Varsity Radio. And Jay, as we wind things down here, there were rumors out yesterday, Terrence Knighton changing up the Twitter bio, changing up the Twitter profile picture. It's all been changed back now. It does appear he's going to be sticking around despite the rumors yesterday. Just a quick thought on that, if you have one, on I guess it seems that those rumors have been put to bed, but just all in all, a busy and somewhat dramatic weekend for Husker football. Does it ever end, I guess, in Nebraska? Every offseason it feels like there's drama.
Here, listen, I guess I didn't even know that was a thing. I don't follow the coach's Twitter handles that closely. I did see something about, you got something about death row. I know they've kind of used that as the D-line group kind of call sign, right? I had no idea. But when it's the only show in town, people are going to notice things, right? And, the inside, the secret messages or whatever it is, I don't know. I have better things to do than just figure out what coaches are doing with their bios and all that stuff personally. So I'll leave it up to you guys and some other people to fill me in on that stuff. But listen, that's just part of it. That's going to happen. And I'm a guy that you just live and learn and you adjust, and whatever happens, and you just try to make the best of the situation. So I haven't put too much thought into coaches changing Twitter bios and Twitter handles and whatever it is. So I'll just leave that at that.
And I guess, Jay, from a Matt Rule perspective, I think it's probably better to be a spot where they're talking about you as opposed to not talking about you, I guess maybe is a way you look at it, glass half full. But Jay, before we get you out of here, we really appreciate your time here on a Monday. Got to get your thoughts with the weather looking beautiful this week. It looks dry, mid-80s into low 90s as we get to the weekend. Any plans for you to hit the golf course and avoid breaking an ankle?
Yeah, first and foremost, try to avoid breaking an ankle. But yeah, the sticks will get out this week. Got an event this weekend I'm playing in, so we'll be working on the game to not embarrass the family, as my wife and kids like to tell me before I go play golf. So it's always a constant work in progress. So yeah, the clubs will not get neglected this week for sure.
What are you working on?
Everything. Everything needs work done. The mental game needs work done. Just trying to. You got to putt it good, chip it good. You got to get tee well. It's just working on everything. Everything is always golf. There's always a fine line, right? It's just trying to keep it in between those parameters. As like the standard deviation, right? You're just trying to keep it in those parameters as close as possible and make sure it doesn't get outside of that. That's when bad stuff really happens. So it's everything's getting worked on.
Former Blackshirt Husker NFLer Jay Moore with us here, as usual, segment on a Monday, continuing the Blackshirt Hour. Jay, appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your Monday. We'll let you get back to it, and we'll get caught up with you next week. All right, bud?
Yeah, sounds good, guys. Later.
Thanks, Jay. It's another Blackshirt Monday, hitting the tail end of it. Jay Moore joining us here on Hail Varsity Radio as we wind things down here. One more segment to go. We'll get some thoughts. David Sanders Jr., the five-star offensive tackle, has included Nebraska in his top four. What does Steve Wiltfong think about Nebraska's chances? Steve Wiltfong, the recruiting insider, obviously, for On 3. He had a brief little clip earlier today on where he thinks Sanders ends up and where his recruitment stands. We'll get to that after the break as Hail Varsity Radio rolls forward to wrap things up on a Monday after this.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time here on a Monday as we got you back from the holiday break. It's Elijah Herbel producing and hosting for you on the show today. We were joined by Will Wilson back in Hour 1. Here in Hour 2, we've been joined by both Charlie McBride and Jay Moore as a part of a Blackshirt Monday. And that Blackshirt Hour comes your way every single Monday. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back with more content your way tomorrow as Mitch Sherman will check in from The Athletic as he does on Tuesdays. And should be good. And Will Wilson will be joining us as well as Schmitty has the week off. He'll be back with us next Monday, potentially Saturday as well. We're getting that figured out as Schmitty's got the week off before we ramp things up for Big Ten Media Days and then the start of fall camp. And before you know it, Husker football season will be here. One of the things we missed out on today was an appearance from Tim Verghese. He's also been on vacation this week, seeing some family overseas. He'll be back with us next Monday, maybe working on Friday. We'll see what the jet lag looks like for Tim as we're working on that one. He picked a heck of a week, along with Schmitty, to take off with being such a busy weekend. But despite the fact that we didn't have Tim, we are going to get some brief recruiting thoughts here. The news of the day on the recruiting front. Five-star offensive tackle David Sanders Jr., he took a visit to Nebraska earlier this summer. It was in late May whenever he visited campus. He included Nebraska among his Final Four schools today in a top 4 post he released on Twitter. Steve Wiltfong hopped on today to discuss David Sanders Jr.'s recruitment and discuss both where Ohio State stands as they're hot and heavy on his heels, as well as where Nebraska stands, as Nebraska's been a late riser in this recruitment.
David Sanders is the overall number one target right now for Ohio State.
Absolutely. I think he's probably been that guy for them the entire cycle, the coveted offensive tackle from Charlotte, North Carolina. And I like where Ohio State stands right now. Hayes Fawcett breaks the news last night, decision date for August 17th. How about that top four, Josh? We have the longtime front runners we've been promoting, Ohio State and Tennessee, Georgia, who has been at or near the top at times in that recruitment, and then Nebraska. He's been to the Lincoln one time, Mother's Day weekend, official visit. And I think what kind of turned him on to Nebraska initially was Dylan Raiola flipping his verbal commitment from Georgia to Lincoln. And I know he's been very involved in trying to recruit David Sanders to campus. They had a phenomenal official visit. There's a lot of resources being poured into Nebraska football right now. We'll see if David Sanders takes a couple more visits in July now during that week they go live at the end of the month before he announces his decision August 17th. But as I sit here and talk to you this morning, I still give the inch or two to Ohio State. Certainly wouldn't be surprised if he picked Tennessee. Georgia remains one of the heavy contenders. And we'll see if Nebraska gets a chance to continue rising in this recruitment. They've quietly done as much. He put out a top 7. They weren't in it. They get an official visit. Then he puts out a top 4, and they're in it. So I thought that was an interesting school in the mix there as Matt Rule and company try and battle for one of the nation's best. But if Ohio State's going to finish number 1 nationally, David Sanders could be the recruit that sews that up for him.
So that's On Three's Steve Wiltfong, his update on David Sanders Jr., where Nebraska stands. Be interesting to follow if Nebraska gets another visit from David Sanders Jr. Can you get him in town for the Colorado game? Will he hold off on his commitment until then? That's something to follow over the next couple of weeks, and we'll get Tim Verghese's thoughts on that as soon as we get him on the show again, whether that be at the end of this week or at the start of next week. If you missed anything from the show today, check it out in podcast form. Search up Hail Varsity Radio wherever you get podcasts, or you can find it on the Hail Varsity YouTube page. You'll get the commercials cut out for you here momentarily, and you can catch that full show shortly following the conclusion of the show. For Will Wilson, this is Elijah Herbel signing out for the day. We'll be back with you tomorrow from 4 to 6, wherever you hear Hail Varsity Radio. That's when we will talk to you again.